An update from the Forestry Committee on the Community Forest Management Plan, the BARKart Exhibit, and the Town Tree Planting Program.
Hi, it's me again. I'm Mary Hogue. I'm chair of the Fairfield Forestry Committee. And we've never, I believe, actually come and given you a presentation about who we are and what we do. And we've done a lot of things, and we have a lot of things we're excited to share. So just to give you a little background, thanks to Ken Placco, our longstanding prior tree warden, and Misty Byer, who was our longstanding prior chair, the committee was started in 2004. So it's been around quite a while. And we are created to promote the stewardship of town-owned trees and provide support and assistance to the tree warden. And we're very grateful that our current tree warden, Jeff Minder, has encouraged us and enabled us to continue doing all this great work. To put in context, there are 270 road miles in Fairfield with approximately 50 to 75,000 trees in the public right-of-ways and overhanging the right-of-ways, with more than 20,000 abutting properties and as well as 100,000 trees that grow on other town properties. We have our community forest vision plan that we did in 2014, and we said it would last for 5 years, so we're working on updating it. So that was done in 2014. It's one of the first in the state of Connecticut, and the Connecticut Deep has been working with us to use it as a template for other towns in the state because it's so unusual. And that's one of the many things related to what we've done on the Forestry Committee that the state looks to us for. It was presented and endorsed by the Board of Selectmen with the goals of public safety and to protect and enhance environmental, cultural, and economic values of trees. This first plan was trying to understand who we are and in the context of Fairfield. So it's very Fairfield-centric. As we've developed and worked with DEEP, they've connected us with surrounding communities, and so we've been working with other local communities. We recently had Groundwork Bridgeport come to our meeting, and we're working on seeing if we can do a collaborative grant program, incorporating youth helping planting and learning about trees. They have this wonderful 50-page booklet that helps explain trees. It's a workbook, it's an after-school program, and there are other communities that we plan to work with. We've also been in communication with the TPZ and their POCD update that's due next year, and we've been working with the Strategic Planning Committee as well. And this, of course, I'm on Sustainable Fairfield Task Force, so that's there as well. And the Bike Walk Committee, the Complete Streets program, part of Complete Streets is planting along the roadside. So we're very connected with them, and I'll talk about another time that we've worked with them. So that's PowerPoint slide number 1. I also just wanted to point out how Jeff Stedman gets to go for a ride in a plane every once in a while in the summer, and he's provided me some of these wonderful photos to show just how wonderful and vital trees are to Fairfield. So I have those to show you, and then I have my other set that didn't fit. So as you can see, Fairfield is a very treed community. On to the next set is something that we worked with, actually, the BARKart Advisory Committee. We did some signage. We did 3 signs within the town green. We also worked with Mike Jaley at the museum. We got a lot of our photos, all of our photos probably, or most of them from there. We worked with BikePed to help figure out the site placement of where to put these. We have 6 signs, 3 in town green. We worked with Parks and Rec to put one at Sherman Green. And we got a grant from the America the Beautiful to do these signs, which they don't have that grant anymore, so that's why we're doing no more signage. Jeff Stedman, by the way, is a consultant on a number of our committees and commissions in town, and he did all these wonderful signs as well as these mock-ups. So this is what it looks like in here. This is the Charter Oak. It's a picture of, you can see Old Independence Hall. So the driveway in between this church and the town property. This is a descendant of the charter oak. So we figured, since most people didn't realize we actually had that in town, we wanted to make sure people knew about it. So it's pretty exciting. We're working with the museum. They're going to be doing a walk that's including some of our signs. We're also working with Bike Ped, and in, I think, October, we haven't set a date, we're going to be doing a walk of all 6 of our signs. We also worked with Mark Barnhart in Community and Economic Development, and the plan was to make sure that our route included a commercial area. So that's why we have Town Green, then we go up to Sherman Green. We have a sign in the semicircle bus stop on the post road across from is a Bank of America, and on the side of the library. So we also worked with the library to make sure that we got information and pictures from them. And then we included the BARKart Museum, and engineering actually extended the sidewalk so that people can safely get to all the signage and get to birdcraft now, which is a really wonderful component of our town. Next show and tell is we have this amazing exhibit in, I guess I should do this, at the first floor of Sullivan Independence Hall. These are from Misty Byer. There are photos that have been blown up of close-ups of bark. So amazingly enough, the exhibit is called Bark. So it's not about dogs. And they're really just photos. They've been just blown up on canvases. And if you look at them independently, for me, some of them, like maybe this one you could tell is bark, but some of them I think you wouldn't know. So they are going to be for sale so that we can recover the cost of them. Right now, Misty covered the cost, so we want to make sure she gets paid. So I don't know the prices of them, but people, as they walk through when we were installing them, were asking how much and could they buy them. So it's pretty exciting. The other nice thing that we're doing is we're working with Michelle Hermsen, who is our art curriculum leader in the Fairfield Public Schools. And during the teacher initiation, or whatever the term is, where's Phil left? But before school started, all the teachers meet, and I think she has about 5 or 6 classes throughout the district that our teachers want to work with us. So we haven't worked out exactly what the plan is, but the hope is that we will take the students and we will do a tree tour of the school campus so that they understand, because the tree warden actually tries to create an arboretum on the school campuses, and people don't seem to know that. So we're going to work with the students and actually see what they get out of it from an art perspective, and we're hoping eventually that we can promote that concept of an arboretum and have signage that may have people understand that these are different trees and why they're important and specific and different from each other. So we're really excited to be working with these different groups, and we're hoping to continue working with the Senior Center and Julie DeMarco and do something down there as well. So if you have any other suggestions of places that we can connect with people, we'd love to do that. My last topic, we have one more person that's going to speak, is I just wanted to talk about the tree health and the tree trimming and removal that's going on in town. So I think it was 2014 was the, we had, before Sandy, we had Irene, we had the 2-storm panel report, and out of that became the State Vegetative Management Task Force, and I was asked to be on it. It was a historic connection between utilities, tree wardens, public and private and nonprofits, and we got together and rewrote a report. Out of that report was the suggestion that we needed to harden our infrastructure, which included checking the health and safety of our roadsides related to trees. Out of that became a state-mandated tree trimming and removal program that a lot of people have been seeing. Up to date, out of the 270 miles that we have in Fairfield, about 30 have been addressed in this program. It's now been extended, is now about 8 more years from now. sorry, I have to keep asking the tree warden, he knows this stuff. And thankfully, because of our tree warden, we've been able to trim versus just remove trees, which if you go to other towns, it's pretty barren in a lot of other places. So we're very much, the most important thing for us is the safety of the roadside. So we're making sure that it's safe, but we're also making sure that the tree health is continuing, because people have been upset about the tree removal. But trees are living things. There also means that they are dying things or they get unhealthy. So we do have to maintain them, and these removals and trimming is necessary. So, oh, I forgot. We have presents for you, goodie bags. So in here is all the kinds of things that we're talking about. The
Thank you.
next topic that we're going to be talking about is our tree planting program. We've had it for several years, but it's always been, up until Jeff, actually been managed by the tree warden. We have an amazing group of people, and I just wanted to point out the committee members that are here, if that's okay.
Mhm.
So we have Tom Carell, who's going to talk soon, so I don't know how he's going to get out. We have Jeff File, who we haven't seen for the whole summer, so we're really excited he's here. We have Dave McMahon. We have our tree warden, Jeff Minder. And we have a new member, Bill Mallon, who has been extremely helpful already. And Alyssa Israel, who had been on the Florida Forestry Committee. So we have a great group of people here. And Tom is going to talk to us about our tree planting program.
It might be helpful if you took the top couple of sheets out of those folders, because they're in direct relevance to what we're going to talk about. They're clipped together. Watering instructions and the like. So I'm Tom Carell. I'm absolutely elated to be here today because I can talk about a totally successful program. We are just oozing with enthusiasm for what we've been able to accomplish with this. We call the program Let's Retree Fairfield. Help us get shade back on our streets. That's the thrust. And this all came about because we've lost so many trees due to old age, just aging out, exceeding their life expectancies, storms, the ETT, electric trimming lines company work, and all that 2 years ago, the Fairfield Forestry Committee decided that we should direct our energy and enthusiasm to getting more trees back. And we're talking about street trees here, trees that are planted in the right-of-ways in front of people's or beside people's homes. And so we had directed our attention to this, rejuvenate this program that was kind of had become dormant and it was effective, but it was not getting the type of publicity and PR that it should. For something that's a subsidized program, we felt we could do a lot better. So we developed a program that got neighborhood involvement. We developed a program that had quick response. Consumer called in, they got a call within 24 hours. And homeowners have responded to this ecstatically. But our goal is to get shade back on the streets. We want to have shady streets. Merton Street, before all the trees came down, the after picture is no trees. That's in front of Eric's house. So, how do we handle the consumer contact? Or we only handle the consumer contact. The heavy lifting is done by Henry, Manny, Jose, and TJ on the tree warden's crew. And I tell you, these guys take a lot of pride in their work. They take training courses, and they're doing a hell of a job. So, we couldn't do what we're doing because we don't dig the holes. But the client contact part of it, we're doing a great job. And I hope that you'll hear about that in all the future. Okay, so the reasons for planting trees. I don't think I have to explain this, but shady streets are healthier. People experience less stress. Their blood pressure's reduced. Cars go slower. They're safer. Trees improve soil, water retention, and lawn care practices. They improve the appearance They make people feel better and increase property values. But the real value proposition here is that for every dollar spent on a tree, you get back up to $5 or over $5 in some cities worth of benefits in cleaner air, lower energy costs, reduced water usage, and increased property values. And the list goes on and on. And we have data to back that up if you're interested. All right, so let's get to the meat of this thing. How does it work? What do? We want canopy. We want streets to be as shady as they can possibly be. And big shade trees give us more bang for the buck. So we want to plant shade trees. But we have to compromise because of all the wire trimming and all that. Under the wires, we can only plant short-growing trees. So we make that compromise, but the streets still come out looking pretty darn nice when you plant shade trees on one side and flowering trees down the other side, especially with the plans that we use. We also want diversity. It doesn't do us any good to plant a row of elm trees and have Dutch elm disease come down and wipe them all out. And we've all lived through that and paid the bills associated with removing those trees. And back when I was a kid, that's how I learned how to climb trees, taking down elm trees in Northampton, Massachusetts. So what our group does is we leverage our knowledge of trees, our experience and our enthusiasm to work in conjunction with the homeowner to select the right tree for their yard. So it's a 50-50 deal. We provide the expertise and the advice. They are helped to make a decision that they're going to be happy with. So that's part of the success formula. Okay, so how does it work? What do? Typically, a homeowner will contact us either through calling the tree warden or through the website. And through the website, you're going to get to a service request. The typical service request, you call them Q alerts sometimes, and service requests on the website. So they will complete the application form or leave us a message. We get notified. Basically the same within hours of when the tree warden gets notified. And like I said before, our goal is to have a personal response to that individual either by phone or email within 24 hours. We don't always meet it, but pretty darn good. And nobody complains. We've had people that have had their Q alerts or their messages to us come in at 7:30 in the morning, and we had a signed agreement with them with all that we needed to do done by 10:30 that morning. So, you know, some of these people said, "Oh, I can't believe the town could do this." Okay. When we talk to the people, if it's other than an email, what we try to do is manage their expectations and talk about size of the trees, growth habits, so on and so forth. What the right-of-way is, a lot of them don't seem to have much knowledge of that. We explain the wires thing. If they're still interested, we have an appointment. One of us visits the site, and we sit down and have a discussion. We walk across the property. We have stakes in our hands when we're doing it and a mallet to pound the stakes in. So we go through a list of pictures, the shade trees, the flowering trees, depending on which they're eligible for, and visual cues at 3 different times of the year. So the shape of the leaves, the bark, the features that are desirable, fall foliage, of course, and that type of thing. If we come to an agreement to a tree, they understand that there's a $150 commitment, which is basically our cost of the trees, and that they have 2 responsibilities. One is to mulch the tree, and the other is to water the tree. So one of those sheets that you have in front of you is watering instructions. The other one should be mulching instructions. Tree care is the mulching instructions. So let's go to that one first. We request that the homeowner get a bag of mulch, put 1 full bag of mulch on each tree, and it starts at the low point in the middle by the crown of the tree and works its way out to being thicker on the outside. And it covers up a reservoir that can easily be watered. No volcano mulches, none of this stuff where it's stacked up high around the stem. No, bad for the trees. Trees start to root in there, insects get in there, it's bad for the trees. So that's their responsibility number 1, mulch it. They gotta mulch it next year too. The other responsibility, and you go to the tree watering sheet, is water it immediately after it's planted, and weekly thereafter with 20 gallons of water. So the first question we get, what's 20 gallons? Well, if you look down on that sheet, you've got 4 of these 5-gallon buckets, 10 of these watering cans. You've seen these gator bags all over town, I'm sure. These things that look like this.
You got the cameras over there.
No. And this is the reality of it. Plastic bag with a zipper. So you put the zipper around the trunk, bring the hose out, lift up the flap, fill it up. All right? 20 gallons of water. Dispersed over the course of the next 12 hours or some number of hours, seeping right through the mulch, inside that mulch surface, going right through the ball to where the roots are going to grow out, establishing that connection between the soil and the mulch root ball environment. That's the key to success. If we get the water to go in, down through the ball of the tree and out, and keep that moist, we keep the fluctuations in temperature and in moisture to a minimum, the roots will just keep growing. It also helps in fall planted trees because it keeps the soil warmer in the winter, and we know that roots grow down to 40 degrees or so, which they can keep it warm enough so that it'll grow right into January in some years. So that's their stake in this. That's our training exercise for them. And they all sit there, listen to it, and say, how can I get those sheets and information? And we email them to them after the trees are planted. Okay. We also email them to them if there's a drought alert and we want more water to go on and things like that. The rest of our process in this deal is we step back with our cameras, take a picture of the stake with identifiers on the line on the yard so that our crew can go out and locate it. And would they sign in what we call an agreement letter, give us a check for $150. So we take a check of a photo of the stake, the check, and the agreement. It gets emailed to the office. And Jeff and Patty in his office have an order from a customer, and we have the check, which we deliver on our meetings or when it's convenient. The stake is for call before you dig, so we can assure our workers' safety. Gas lines are present in a lot of these homes, and and things like that. So we make sure we follow those rules, and we plant trees on 2 cycles: a spring cycle and a fall cycle. We're just gearing up or finishing our order cycle for the fall, and the spring cycle was a little bit disrupted this year because of the spring weather, but we managed to get through it, and we'll know in a while how well we did. So the newest part of this thing is an evaluation. How are we doing? Okay. So last year, when we took over this program, or this part of this program, we decided we needed a database. We want to know what happens to those trees that we plant. How did we do it? We want to know by type and by location or whatever's happening to them. Suppliers are included in the equations. So we go out once or twice during this growing season and evaluate the trees. We evaluate them on a stupidly simple system because that works for us. And 1, 2, or 3. 1, 2, or 3. 1, the trees are thriving. They look like any other tree of its type. Leaves are full size, so on and so forth. Amount of growth is acceptable. 3, the opposite extreme. The trees are declining and not very representative of what we expect them to be. And 2 is somewhere in between. We keep an eye on them, but nothing really wrong. They're just not up to the A standard. We feel it's a poor use of our resources to continue to plant poor performing trees. Not one shade tree died last year from the trees that we planted in the spring program. And we don't know about the fall program yet because we haven't evaluated them. Most of the flowering trees thrived. What didn't thrive, guess, dogwoods. Fairfield dogwoods insult. We've stopped offering dogwoods to most locations in Fairfield. We will not plant dogwoods because the failure rate is so high. And that's not just a Fairfield problem, it's in all over the East Coast, all over the Northeast, really, from Michigan to Maine to Maryland. So we do make a small compromise for Greenfield Hill because of the festival up there, but we don't offer green dogwoods. Now, there are alternatives to dogwoods. There's a Kusa dogwood, which is a Chinese dogwood that we have in the program. So customers, they're happy. Flowers a little bit later, bigger flowers, so it extends your season. But we have verifiable results. So this, in the next few weeks, our group will be going around and doing their evaluation for this year, or the first evaluation if we need a second one, which we'll do it later. And we now have a database, and we're building on that each season. In the future, what do we expect for the future? What's motivating us going forward? We're going to need, at some point, the resources and crew and support to do some selective pruning, to do some thinning out of trees or taking out damaged branches and things like that, and possibly raising up some that are over sidewalks and things that are appropriate for safety on the sidewalks. And there's going to need to be some upkeep that's ongoing as these trees become teenagers in their maturation. And that'll set them up for the next 10 to 20 years to occupy their spaces and be safe. We need to keep up on new varieties for pest resistance, disease resistance, and possible insect resistance, and make sure that we can get the newer varieties. It's not always the case that we can, but we have to be able to get the stuff that keeps its leaves on all year and makes these trees look their part. We are going to emphasize the neighborhood focus because we've had outstanding results with that. We started off working with 45 houses in Riverhurst, and Mike, you were at the Sturgis Cottage that night when we had a booth or a table there with a sign on it. Actually, this is one of the signs that was on it. And I pulled you aside and said, you ought to know what this is going on here because we were doing a prototype program. And that was for 45 homes in the Riverhurst little neighborhood up there, which rapidly expanded into a lot of mill plain work because it worked. This year we have a prototype or an expanded program going on in the Very Street neighborhood over here, between Reef Road and Oldfield and the Very Streets, which is over 500 homes. And I think we've kind of overstepped our capabilities a little bit, but we're going to put on a big push this fall and for next spring. So we've planted a fair number of trees down there. Next fall, next spring, that will continue. And in this program, we recruited neighbors as street captains to walk the streets and talk to their neighbors. We rated the quality of the yard, of each yard, so they could go to the top priority ones first and maybe not even get to some of the lower priority ones because these were the people that needed a tree, could benefit from it. The neighbors, after they get us the list of contacts, we, forestry people, go back and we do the orders for the trees. So they're not involved with that. But they set up a GoFundMe site for people that might appreciate a tree. People can donate some portion of a tree, and it might go to a poor person's neighborhood that couldn't afford it on their own. It might go to a town park or a public space. So a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm. The next future program is the schools program, and that's so new I can't even explain to you what it is because it's evolving pretty quickly. One thing that we've recognized is that developers are doing us a disservice when they go into a house lot or building lot or tear down and take down every tree in the yard. It's really, we can't recover from that with a tree on the front yard and on the right of way. And from a town perspective, we should be looking at how to maintain those trees in yards because our air conditioning costs are higher, our water use costs are higher, our yards are uncomfortable when you don't have a tree. That's the tree planting program in a nutshell. There's one other thing, and not necessarily a small thing, but we have a commemorative tree program. And that program has also received our energy and enthusiasm. And the reason that I bring it up in this way is because this program, it's just a gem to get trees into public spaces. Any donor who would like to plant a tree to honor a person or the memory of something or someone is able to, for $150, have a tree planted in a park or a public space. An Fairfield Forestry Committee member, volunteer, works with the donor and the tree warden to figure out a proper tree, a place where we could put it that means something to that person. You know, there's some sentimental reason or some emotional reason. For example, this is what we call the Ken Money tree, which is Ken Money from the Exide Mill River cleanup, ushered the Exide side of that through the town and supported us in that. And this tree was planted in his memory posthumously, and we encouraged that. So we got a tree in the park at the end of Umpqua and Somerset Avenue, and this was a gathering to honor his work. We have a tree planted out here in honor of Judge Caruso, and we give a certificate like this to the donor for that family that they have, and they feel pretty cool about that. The new twist on this year that makes it a little more magic is that this year for the first time, or last year and this year for the first time, they can buy a tree from our inventory from the tree planting program. So that makes it a more affordable tree at $150. In the past, most of the trees came through going to a garden center, lining up the work, or lining up a tree, negotiating back and forth. Now we cover all of that stuff. They can still go to a garden center and buy a bigger tree, a different type, a different foliage color, whatever, as long as we go through the process and the steps and get everybody on the same page. And they pay for the tree, we coordinate with the garden center to make sure it gets planted. I think in the last 2 years, we planted more trees in the commemorative tree program than in the 10 prior years. And it's still a small number, but it's exciting. And thanks for your attention.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the board?
No, that was a very complete presentation.
Yeah, a lot longer than you probably.
Do we get tree warden certification for completing this course? No, in all seriousness, thank you. It's clear that it's working. I see it in our neighborhood, the Mill Plain Road neighborhood. Certainly, I bike through Riverhurst enough. I'm excited that the street line trees are coming back to where they were when I was a kid growing up. It does alleviate stress. It helps shade your yard. It makes it more comfortable in your backyard. And clearly, all the hard work the entire committee has put together on this, it's growing in popularity.
I think we should get a tree in your yard.
I'm more than happy to.
Mr. Bateson?
I can speak to this personally, having this summer gone through the tree trimming project on my property. I lost 5 trees to the UI trimming project. I wasn't happy about it, but not having power for 14 days, I realized the necessity for it. I will commend the tree warden in that they were very responsive when, you know, I got the notice from Lewis Tree, they had stopped by, and then I called you guys and I was like, oh, okay, well, they're taking them down. I have an option. They're going to be putting up some new ones. It's going to, you know, we went through the options, and I was like, oh, it was, you know, I'm happy about that, to participate in that. And I found today's presentation pretty informative. I didn't know cars went slower with trees on the street.
They try the traffic calming.
I didn't know that. It was pretty cool. But thanks for the presentation. I found it informative.
All right. Thank you. I love the passion, love the enthusiasm, and you're making a lasting impact on Fairfield and doing all that. I think that it's especially important given the UI, what do they call it, vegetation enhancement program they have, which is targeted at cutting down trees. Now, the best of intentions, because they're trying to cut it down to, as Mr. Bateson mentioned, minimize the impact on power lines. They don't all fall down in every storm and knock down the power lines, but long-term, that's supposed to be helpful. My concern with just the UI program, which we've talked about multiple times, is they they are going out, cutting them down, and before they do that, our tree warden has to sign off on them. So our tree warden is doing double duty. He's doing his normal tree warden duties for here, thank you, Jeff, but also has to take on their load, and the state statute that passed this and allowed for this didn't provide any funding to the towns to help us reinforce or get extra support for Jeff in doing this. The second thing is when they cut them down, they just cut them down. They do not grind a stump, do not take care of that, so we basically go from having tree-lined streets to stump-lined streets. And I think that's appalling. And again, the state didn't provide any money to do that, so it's the same funding source that is paying to cut down the trees could also pay to grind the stumps and do that and provide then at least a fresh base. Even if they don't plant new trees, at least provide a ground foundation suitable to plant new trees before we have to get out and grind those down. So I know that's been tough to manage the UI program through all of that.
We get
So,
some of the heat from that, from the customers. Are they gonna take the stump out? Questions.
Yeah, the answer is no. I mean, we've been fighting for that for 4 or 5 years now. So that's definitely a frustration with the program, and certainly something else to add cost to the town when that happens. So another unfunded mandate. I hate those words, but in this case, both are. But love the programs, both the Plant a Tree, but also the commemorative tree program, in terms of keeping. Fairfield's been recognized as Tree City USA for 27 years now. I believe that's the 30. I believe that's the most in Connecticut. Okay, that's the most in Connecticut.
Does that mean tree city?
Yeah,
It's just the most trees, or how do you define it?
it's a recognition
Okay.
by the state, I believe, or the recognition by the state for our care, maintenance, and encouragement for growth of trees. And if I'm correct, also, if you go back 100, 150 years, that we have across the state almost twice as many trees now as we did then, which surprised me, because I would have thought with all the development, we cut things down. But what we stopped doing is we stopped being an agrarian society. So all those old farm fields have now filled in. And trees last 30 to 50 years, roughly, and that's a generation. So they come back. So in that last 100 to 150 years, we've had 3 to 4 generations of trees, so it's filled out tremendously. Now, did we do a tree inventory at some point?
We did a tree.
You've got, please, sorry, Mary, you need to stand at the podium.
Tree inventory, what was that?
Tree service?
We did a tree, so we called it a tree survey. So we overlaid the census map with the town to do a 10% survey of the trees. So an inventory would be every single tree in town.
I thought there was a flyover at one point.
Yes, then with
Funded
MetroCog.
between MetroCog and Public Works to get a coverage map, canopy map, that's it.
Study, and that's about 4 years old, yeah.
Mhm.
And so with the LiDAR technology, they can assess the quality and the health of the tree population. Trees, by the way, depending on the species, the flowering trees, 30 years, oaks and so forth, 100, however long. And in terms of diversity, one of our problems that we're having, especially in Greenfield Hill, is especially our lovely, our sugar maples and all that beautiful foliage. They're all the same age. And especially on the roadside, they're really, really intolerant of the salt and all the fumes. So they're all in decline. And they're all the same age, so they're all declining at the same time. And that's a big, big problem for everywhere in the Northeast. We had a big hurricane in '38, knocked down just about every tree in the area, and all the trees are about the same age. So that's one of the issues that we're working with in our community management plan, is trying to make sure that we do this tree planting program over the course of every year. We plant more trees, not plant a whole lot at the same time. So the diversity is not just the species, but also the age.
Okay. When you did this survey, did you learn anything from the survey? That was that 10% sampling of what
Yeah.
kind of trees we have.
We weren't surprised by what we learned. We were, I guess, surprised by the amount of trees that, as you drove by, they looked fine, but as we got close up and did all the measurements, they weren't as healthy as we had hoped. So that was probably the disappointing part. as individual volunteers, what we found was there were some beautiful neighborhoods with amazing trees, a lot of oak-lined streets in town with the very old trees. So they're all the same age. That's the bad part, but there's some amazing and gorgeous neighborhoods with trees, and that makes all the difference.
All right, the flyover that documented the canopy coverage, anything that we learned out of that?
That would be more Jeff, I guess. It's still being processed, that's why I don't know. We've gone up to MetroCog a couple of times and been given information, but sometimes a little over my head, it gets into all this GIS, LiDAR.
All right, if you'll kind of send me an email on that, I'll follow up with MetroCog and see where they are.
Okay.
Taking on that place. All right, thank you. Any further questions from the board?
No, thank you, everybody.
Guys, just great report. Thank you very much, and thank you for
Thank
your
you.
passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing on this.